Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hello, and welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. Probably you're a little sad, like we are, that there's no more Olympics to watch. But never fear, we have a guest today who was a rhythmic gymnast, and we're going to talk all about her experience in becoming a rhythmic gymnast at the age of 9, and how that eventually led her to diving into yoga. And if you can believe it, at the age of 19, she went to Kerala, India, and completed a 500-hour level 1 teacher training in Modo Yoga, which eventually led her to Ashtanga Yoga. And she's trained with some amazing teachers like Sharath Jois, Ted Gran, the founder of Modo Yoga, Ryan Lear, as well as David Swenson, David Robson, Keno McGregor, and Tim Feldman, as well as practicing with me a couple of times here in Calgary. So she started teaching yoga internationally in 2021 and has been leading teacher trainings and retreats and workshops all over the world: Canada, Peru, Thailand, Bali, I'm sure some other places as well. So we're going to dive in with my beautiful friend and guest today, Arbely Rubalcava, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. So let's just jump right in and get going. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. Today, Russell and I are joined by Arbely Rubalcava. How'd I do?
Perfect.
Affectionately known as Arbs.
Arbs, how are you? You look like you're in paradise.
I'm in Bali.
How did you end up there? And how did we end up on the far reaches of the world?
I'm just in Bali here practicing.
That's so nice. Are you practicing by yourself or are you practicing with a teacher there?
With Ian Grisek. Do you guys know him?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yes.
I convinced Ian to go to Mysore for the first time. That's me.
Did you?
I'm the one that convinced him.
I think I did.
No, it was me. I know I did.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, I think so. I had an impact. I had a demonstrative impact on his life.
When I first met Ian, I was living in Goa teaching at Purple Valley Retreat Center there. And he was taking classes with Rolf and Marcy. And he's also, as you probably know, a Vipassana meditation teacher.
Yes.
Who's done and sat many, many long retreats. So we affectionately called him 60-Day Ian.
60-Day Ian.
Because he sat a 60-day Vipassana silent meditation retreat.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were
I would have had the time of my life.
we were teaching, and like he had gone into the Vipassana retreat, and every couple of weeks we'd look at each other and be like, Ian's still meditating.
Oh yeah.
Still there.
Because 60 days is kind of a long time
Still
when
there,
you're
2
not
months.
at the meditation retreat center.
But most of the time you're not really meditating. Most of the time you're just sitting there. I mean, let's be fair.
I don't know. I think you're meditating.
You're just kind of sitting there, kind of, trying to keep your back straight.
60
hips
days.
open.
60 days is a long time.
There was a guy sitting next to me from California. No, it must have been, was it Texas? No, I think I was in Texas. Some guy from Texas, from Austin, Texas. And he had pillows up, stacked up around him. He's got his knees up. He's got like hand rests, so because his arms got so tired, hanging there. And I'm sitting there in Baddha Konasana, full Baddha Konasana. I sat in Baddha Konasana for like, I don't know, the full 11 days because it's not 10. Don't let anybody tell you it's 10. It's 11.
Yep.
And I did 11 days in Bottle Canasta because I don't care. And I was like, yeah, no big whoop. The guy was like, what the fuck, dude?
He was crying. So he was in so much pain.
What are you? This guy next to me, and he came up to me next to me and he said those exact words. He said, what the fuck, bro? Dude. That's a quote.
That's enlightening.
Have you ever sat of a Vipassana retreat?
Yeah,
a 10-day silent retreat?
Two. One in Youngstown in Alberta, actually.
Yeah, that's a nice one. It's at the center here, right?
Yeah, at the center there. And then one most recently in Kerala, just this past February. Yes.
No, I understand that the Indian Vipassanas are wacky.
No, I love them. What did you think? How do you compare?
You know what? They're a little different because I found like it was just more easygoing.
Yeah, a lot of old ladies talking.
That's right.
To each other.
And like, yes. And then in the center where you stay, like there was like the TV was on a little bit and there was still like communication between people. And, you know, the people serving us the food, they were still talking amongst themselves. I don't know. I felt like it kind of took me out of the zone a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Did they have a pagoda at that one in Kerala?
Oh, what do you mean?
Okay, so in India, they at the two centers that I've been at, they have like a pagoda. They make like a round circular hall that's just filled with meditation cells, like a kind of like a prison, but for meditation. And it has a stupa, so it goes up into like a stupa, like a very Buddhist shrine. And after, I forget what day, but I think after day 7, maybe, or on day 7, you get assigned a cell in the pagoda. And then you get to go and you have your own little meditation, like cubby hole that you get to go in and close the door and sit in the meditation cell in the pagoda. And it's very special.
So for me, in my country, when you're in isolation, when you're doing hard time and you're incarcerated, that's considered an extra punishment. But like for me personally, it's like, but now you're in paradise. Now you're finally like at peace.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you're going to Turkey next week.
Is that like prison? Or is that at peace?
No. I'm the one being left in isolation.
Oh, you're in prison.
But it's also freedom.
Yeah.
Now Bali also looks like a prison.
No, it looks like a paradise.
No, but also a prison. It really depends on how you frame these things.
Why a prison, Russ?
You're trapped there on an island, and you can't get. You're stuck there. You don't have access to snow or public transportation, probably.
So you know what? Actually, a little bit like this. So I was planning to be here for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying 2 months. And my plans completely changed.
Do you need help?
My plans completely changed. Actually, I was just come to Bali to practice, and then I was going to go back to Thailand. But then during my layover in Thailand, it was better for me not to return because I don't have a work permit while teaching yoga, and they're getting very strict in Thailand and Bali. So,
are you absolutely sure that you should be on TV right now, broadcasting?
But are you teaching in Bali, or are you just practicing right now?
Well, right now, just practicing. But I mean, I had a permanent contract of me teaching teacher trainings in Thailand. But then I was arrested in Thailand, and then, but just because it was just one of those things, wrong place, wrong time. But I feel like it was more like divine intervention, to be honest. So the police came when I was teaching in front of students, and they came and they took me and a Shaolin monk who was actually there just teaching Qigong, like as a guest teacher. So then I was like with a Shaolin monk there at the police station. But I didn't have to
Oh
spend the night
man.
in jail because my boss bailed us out. But we did have to go take a ferry to Koh Samui the next morning and testify guilty in front of a judge and say that we would not continue teaching. But get this, there was 1 week left of the teacher training. So I mean, I couldn't just drop the training. So I had to continue teaching.
So I had to continue teaching.
I love being arrested in other countries. I was arrested twice in Mexico. I was also arrested in Mongolia, which is one of my favorite stories. But I think it's just a great thing for young people to be arrested in other countries.
I don't know about
It's
that, but I'm
fantastic.
glad that you didn't have to spend the night in prison and that you got bailed out.
Yeah, you know what? And there was people offering to bring me blankets. And in my head, I was like, this is so bizarre. Like they have beds and blankets. Why would this person offer me? But then I was getting my fingerprints there by the cells. And I was like, there were people legit on the concrete floor. No blankets, no pillows, no nothing. So,
Wow.
but
Wow.
When I
So-
was in prison, there were 4 Pakistani guys and 1 guy from Kuwait, and they all shared hashish with each other. And I was like, I would really like some hashish. And they said, no, not you. And I was like, well, this is racist now. On top of being arrested, now I'm subject to racism in prison. It's terrible. I had a terrible time. I mean, actually, it was awesome. But
That's what you get.
that's what you get. Tamaulipas. That's where I was arrested in Mexico.
Tamaulipas?
Tamaulipas. Surely you've heard of Tamaulipas. Reynosa.
Perhaps.
Are you from Mexico? I read here that you were from Mexico. You grew up in Montreal, but you were born in Mexico. So do you define yourself as Canadian, actually?
So I'm just a fake Mexican.
No, I think you're a real Mexican Canadian.
Well,
Thank
really,
you.
if she wants to define herself as a fake Mexican, that's really up to her. Because we choose how we identify ourselves.
You can identify however you
You
want.
can identify however you want. If you want to be a fake Mexican, you can. It's fine. I can't brand you.
But
you are from Montreal.
Yes, I grew up there. So I lived there since I was 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you born in Mexico?
Where? Ciudad
I think
Obregón, Sonora, Mexico, close to Baja California,
Super.
in the northwest part.
On the west side. Yeah, that's
I
right.
was
It's quite
5
young.
when I left.
Yeah. Now you left. Your parents. Your father is quite an educated man. He had a PhD in finance, and he left for Montreal to pursue his PhD.
Correct.
And the whole family went with him. Was that? Do you even remember the transition? Do you remember what that was like, or do you just like you left the house for kindergarten one day and it was for Canada?
No, it's very vivid, actually. It's very vivid. So I remember like being in Mexico and just like sitting on the front step in front of the house, and my parents were kind of preparing us for like this big event of like what it would be like to emigrate from Mexico to Montreal. And they were just kind of talking us through it, like this is what it's going to be like, and this is like how it's different. And I remember it quite well. And then I remember also like being on the plane and like landing in Montreal and like the nighttime and seeing all the lights outside the plane and just like stepping in the airport and seeing like McDonald's for the first time. And, like just things like that. I remember it very vividly, actually. And then we arrived and we landed at the YMCA, and then we stayed there for a few days before we got an apartment in Montreal.
Oh.
And then you started kindergarten in Montreal.
That's right, yes. Montreal to Cégep. So most of the education except university.
And were they speaking French or English or both?
It was bilingual education, so 50-50.
Okay. But for you at that time, it was like all brand new.
You know what it was? And there's schools that are called like welcome schools, I believe they're called, where the immigrant kids can go and they take part in these classes with other immigrant kids and they're taught in a different way. But I didn't go to one of those schools. Like I just went directly to a school with all the Canadian kids. So it was It was hard. It was hard. And I mean, I
Yeah.
was only 5, but my brothers were, I think, 9 and 14. So for them, it was harder. But
Yeah.
I just mean, like, imagine just going and you're sitting and it's like full days and people are speaking like Russian to you or just some other language that was the whole kindergarten was just being there. And I had no idea what was happening.
Wow.
You described it as quite a difficult period that you would even like fake being sick and that your mom would take you to the doctor because she believed you. And then that was like how you got out of going to school. And at some point, like there was like a plan to try and like help you adjust to being in school. Is that right? Do I have that right?
So maybe around grade 3 or something like this. But guys, by grade 1, I was fully bilingual. Like I was fully English French.
Wow.
It just took 1 year to learn the new languages. But I wasn't too fond of the schooling, but not because of the language at that point. But yes, I did fake being sick, but my mom just believed me. And then she kept taking me to the doctor all the time. And the doctor knew there was something up. So he said I should do an extracurricular activity. And then I started to wonder, what could that be? But rhythmic gymnastics was it for me. So then I started that when I was 9.
Yeah.
9.
Wow.
It was on the Olympics? You saw it on TV or something?
Yeah.
And what year was that? What Olympics was that? Because we're
Well,
quite proud of our Calgary Olympics, you know. You may
That
not
was
even
before she got
I think
here.
you may have not have been here yet.
I think it was like 10 years before.
so this was around
98.
98.
Correct.
Okay.
It was 98.
Okay. And you saw it on TV. I'm going to find out what Olympics that is. You two talk amongst yourselves. And you became a kind of very like super athlete at gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics. Harmony was a kind of a super athlete.
Yes.
And the two of you really share that in common, actually, and have a very similar story as far as, kind of lashing yourself
Putting
and
a
like
lot of
really
pressure
treating
on
yourself
yourself.
really quite a hard way and subjecting yourself to some meanies and coaches. And it kind of got difficult for the two of you, didn't it?
I think when you're a child, you're not really subjecting yourself to them. I think it's just what shows up in your reality.
Oh, you don't have a choice.
Not really. You don't get to
Oh.
choose your teacher. Your teacher
Yeah.
just shows up and that's who you get.
Well, yeah, it sounds like your parents, you're suggesting your parents were involved in this.
Well, yeah, but they don't know because they're not there. They just drop you off. So kids have interesting experiences that are unique to the child. So tell us, though, I mean, I know gymnastics and especially rhythmic gymnastics, but I think all gymnastics are quite intense, like ballet, especially when you're really good and you have the trainers that are from like Russia or, the Eastern kind of European bloc. They're very intense. What was your experience like being a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old training at this type of level? Was it your dream to go to the Olympics? Is that sort of what you were working towards? And
I was not my dream for Olympics, but I just really took to it. I took to the sport. I mean, when I started and it was just recreational classes, I found myself just being very engaged with it and I was just very hooked, and it wasn't just something that was fun for me like maybe it was for the other kids. I just loved it and I was very focused and I wanted to do everything perfectly, and so then I just got into competing, and then my whole life changed because I mean, if you guys know, when you get into competitive sport, it's it gives you so much else in your other areas of life, and I got a boost in my self-esteem, and then the training and the discipline and just having to figure out how to navigate my schedule at such a young age, because I was also going to a very top high school in Quebec. So I had a lot of demands academically and also with the sport competing. So I had a lot of juggling to do at a very young age. But yeah, my whole life was gymnastics. My whole friends and everything was just gymnastics. It wasn't really school friends. And on the weekends I was training and everything was just gym.
I mean, you're pretty naturally flexible. You've practiced with me before, so I know
Oh,
you
it's
have
not natural. She spent all that time working at
no,
it.
but she has you have like hypermobility in your body
Oh,
already.
do you?
So you would have been very, very good at rhythmic gymnastics.
But look, I don't know, my elbows are just natural.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have
those are natural elbows. Yeah. Those are yeah.
But your back bend is not natural. Would you not say you're quite flexible?
Yes. But like when you're a child though, like you know what?
It's true.
Yes. But no, I've taught yoga to kids in high school and I'm like, oh, they're actually not just flexible. So it's hard to say.
They're not at all. Yeah, people talk about how flexible kids are, and like they're all so hamstrung, none of them can bend over at all.
Yeah.
Unless they're female gymnasts and dancers. Those are like your supreme athletes in middle school are those girls. Because the boys can't do anything. They can do nothing, is my experience.
Nothing.
They can run maybe, but like even really not very well.
You know what?
I'm
I
curious,
think they can do jump backs and jump throughs though, the boys.
Yes, they
can totally do that.
Bend over. If they can bend over at all, I don't know. But,
yeah.
I'm curious, like how you have found. So, like with the gymnastics routine, it has all of those beautiful things like discipline and focus, and probably you're watching your diet. And I know there's a lot of eating disorders in gymnastics as well.
This dance.
So, what was your experience with being a gymnast and competing at a very high level? Was it like a lot of pressure? Was it emotionally taxing? Was it mentally taxing? How are you dealing with your environment?
Yeah, it was all of those things. I mean, I loved the sport so much. And then it got to a point where I started to like it less and less and less. One of my good friends who I was there, we would train together. She became anorexic and she was like in the hospital and being tube fed like consistently. And that was really, I think, hard to see. But it was hard because the coaches were also encouraging that or telling her she looked really good. So there was something that was like toxic about being in that environment and kind of just a twisted thing and you're so able to be influenced at that age where, I don't know, it's just easy to kind of like manipulate what is right and what is wrong when you're 13 and when you're 12, 13, 14. And yeah, so that really affected me. And then I also felt like I could see myself, but what I was seeing was not really accurate. So it's like I thought I was way bigger than what I actually was. And then I started to just be very controlling of my diet and just had an intense fear around food that I was maybe able to hide very well. So
how would you hide it? Were your parents like asking you to eat all the time and you were just like pretending to eat and throwing it away, or what were you doing?
Well, I guess I just like at lunchtime in school, I just wouldn't eat. And, my parents were just very busy people, working. So yeah. I was just very much independent.
Yeah. Your dad was also living in Saskatchewan at this time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. At 14, he left. He left at 14. And then I saw him twice a year at that point from then on.
Yeah. So you're kind of alone and left to your own devices.
Yeah. Little bit.
You do share. I mean, that's really interesting, Harmony. Like you really do share some similar stories there. Like you talked about how you had gotten really thin at a camp and kind of dangerously so, I think. And you came back and everyone complimented you. And I think, didn't you say like it was at that point you realized that something really sick and toxic was happening?
Yeah, I was older though. At that point I was 16 and I had just graduated grade 11. And that's when I really noticed, because sometimes I think we have like another part of our brain that is like looking in on the situation and can see like, something's not right here. I'm curious if you had that part of your brain. I mean, I was a little older than you, so something clicked at that point where it was literally a part of myself was like, you're gonna die. And these people are telling you look great. And I was like, what? And it was like a wake up in a way. It really like kind of woke me up out of it. And I just quit. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. It's over. I'm not going back. I'm not going back to class. I'm dropping out of the show that I was in. I mean, it wasn't like exactly immediate. You know, it took a couple months, but it definitely kind of was like this building of recognizing that I was in a very unhealthy pattern and that I had to stop in order to prioritize myself. But then that loss of identity is very strong because probably similar to you, for my whole life, I had identified as a ballerina and a dancer. And what happens when you take that away? You're left not knowing who you are.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was that I had a lot of ruminating thoughts that were very negative. And then I developed like a ton of self-hatred. And it's very sad actually to look back on that time because it went on for so many years, for such a long period of time. And it was so deep and like so deeply ingrained, and I wasn't able to get out of that thinking. And yeah, so then I became depressed, and then I was put on medication when I was 13. And then it was also combined with like maybe anorexia, but I wasn't like underweight. So I didn't really like believe I had it, even though I was diagnosed with it. And that's kind of what it was like. And then I quit and I felt some relief of like the pressure being off. But then there was what you said, like that loss of identity where I didn't know who I was anymore. And I was just searching to fill that void with other sports. So then I kept doing a bunch of other sports to just kind of fill that.
What kind of sports did you do?
Taekwondo.
Whoa.
But you know, they have kicks there. So like when you have like flexible hamstrings, it's like you can kick really high. So and like volleyball, but like volleyball, like I'm short, but like I can jump high. So so yeah. But then I found yoga when I was 18.
Yeah. And how, I mean, you mentioned that you had found Modo Yoga, which is the evolution of Moksha Yoga created by Ted Grand, right?
Yes, Ted Grand and Jess Robertson. They founded it in 2004. Initially, it was like they got into Bikram and then they decided to make the sequence more accessible and less dogmatic. And that's why they created Moksha, now known as Modo Yoga. So it's still like a set seat of sequence practiced in a hot room, but it's not as hot as the Bikram studios.
And that was your first practice, your first intro to yoga?
That's right. So when I was 18, I had a friend who was like, come do yoga. And I was like, yoga? Like, I'm an ex-gymnast. Like, no thanks. But she really insisted. And I was just like, I don't do yoga. But she's like, it's $20 and it's 1 week. Just come. Like, if you don't like it, just drop out after. And I was just like, fine, but kind of rolling my eyes. And then I did it, but it like kicked my butt and like I found it challenging to some extent. And then I just stuck to it and I kind of just started going every day. And after 4 months, I knew I wanted to teach.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd found your passion.
So a year later, I went to India and did a 500-hour training when I was 19.
Wow.
Oh, in Kerala.
In Kerala.
Yeah.
But did you find some similarities between the rhythmic gymnastics and the yoga practice, or the discipline and the dedication to doing it? Did it like bring up any?
Was it triggering?
Yeah.
I felt like when I wasn't sure what path I wanted to go down on in life, like when you graduate high school and you're like, and then you're in Cégep and then you're like, oh, what do I do? I knew very strongly that I wanted to dedicate myself to something that was with the body, but also somehow spiritual. But the yoga hadn't clicked yet. But I very much was like, I want to do something that involves the body and that is spiritual. And I was very like drawn to spirituality at a very young age. So then for me, it was just that perfect combination of both using the body and having that awareness cultivated within every practice, and it just being such an ancient practice, and being able to have like reverence for something greater. Like it just all came together when I started practicing yoga. And I feel very much that it was the teachers that made that ambiance, like that made it that accessible. Because people can go to like any yoga class and it might just not resonate with them because it's a different teacher, or maybe they do a yoga class at a gym or something and it doesn't click. And yeah, so I really feel like it was also the studio and the whole community that made it that way for me.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm struggling right now. And I think one of the things I'm struggling with is that so often in my life, I wanted to be acknowledged and observed, and I wanted to be seen. And so it was somehow always kind of wrapped up with being a little bit different, a little bit queer, special. But the painting or the yoga, even football in its way, I played football in a kind of a different kind of a way. I was extremely violent. But I kept finding that, especially with something like yoga, which was meant to kind of give me equanimity, and it was meant ostensibly to heal that wound. I got so wrapped up in trying to get a gold medal out of it, and it really kind of became a kind of a perverse practice for me. And I really felt like I really wrecked it by the way that I got wrapped up in it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think especially Ashtanga and us who practice Ashtanga yoga in a very consistent and disciplined way, like we have that kind of personality, right? A little bit A-type, a little bit perfectionist. And then we're attracted to Ashtanga because it pushes us and it's a kind of like masochistic in a way, right? So
Yeah.
So no, but then I mean I see it even just in Mysore all the time, like in Mysore, India. Like it's a whole culture of, but then that's when you have to get into like your why and what is the practice really giving you, and are you practicing like for asana and to get your leg behind your head, or are you practicing to just be contribute better in your day-to-day life and be a better person and be of service. And it's also important to like be questioning that and to see like, is the practice making some changes in your life? Is it making you more impatient, or is it making you better, more compassionate, more yielding in a way? It's on us as practitioners to investigate and to see about the yamas and the niyamas and just all the 8 limbs, and to go beyond the asana, right? Because we can totally get trapped in that wheel of like more poses. But I think it's also a phase. It's like you get so hyped up about the practice and you see your body can do so much, and then you reach a plateau, and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? Like, is it more than just the asanas? When I can't advance, when I have an injury, when this happens, yeah. And then I think like the real yoga starts too, to when things change in your life and you have different life circumstances that prevent you from doing what you were able to do. Yeah, a lot of people quit in that time, but then it's also like the practice can be so easily modified and adjusted. Like we just need to think a little bit broader. Like you don't have to practice a full sequence or an hour even. Like, it's not necessary. Like, the practice needs to serve your life, I feel,
Yeah.
So that's something that has changed for me throughout the years, because at this point I've been practicing Mysore style for 12 years, and there's so much that has changed from the beginning to the middle to now, and my whole mindset around the practice has also significantly changed to be a little bit more, I don't know, forgiving maybe.
Yeah. I'm curious, because of your extensive training in Modo Yoga and like also practicing with Ted Grant and it's Jess Robertson.
Correct.
Directly, and teaching Modo Yoga, and then coming into Ashtanga Yoga, from like a purist Ashtanga perspective. We had a studio in Victoria, British Columbia for many years. And then there was also a Moksha Yoga studio there. It was Moksha Yoga at the time. And we were always a little bit like, they're not doing real yoga over there. So what was your experience with like the difference or the transition? Because now you're fully practicing Mysore style Ashtanga Yoga. What was it that you noticed, or what drew you into that practice over staying with the hot yoga Modo style?
You know what? It was just a matter that I moved from Montreal to Saskatchewan to Regina. So I moved from Montreal to Regina to study university, and there was no hot yoga studio at the time. And I was fully invested in Modo, and I was fully in it, and I loved it so much. And I had already been teaching Modo Yoga in Montreal, but there was just no hot yoga studio. So I just got into Ashtanga, and I loved it. I loved it.
You were with Emma in Regina, is that right?
Yes, at a studio called Yoga Mala. And she was my first teacher with Mysore style. And then it became David Robson. He came and taught 100-hour immersion over a 5-month period, and then taught me how to teach full primary with the Sanskrit counts.
So what was it though? There's kind of an addictive quality to Ashtanga Yoga that if you resonate with it, it pulls you in and you're like, I love this. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you obviously got pulled in. So what was it about the practice that lit you up?
Well, I feel like it's similar for what both of you maybe perhaps, huh? But
I don't know. Let's find out.
You mean that we have an addictive personality, the two of us? Is that the accusation? You're not far off.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So, I just love the challenge of it, the whole challenge of it. Okay, so I got into Ashtanga and I was already able to do a few things, huh? I don't know, maybe capo or maybe drop backs or things like this, so that was a little bit of an advantage. But there were things I had to work on. I couldn't put my legs behind my head, that took me a few months to do. Or as a rhythmic gymnast, you don't do handstands, guys. Right. You don't do that. That's artistic gymnastics. So, I didn't know how to do a handstand when I started but mostly it was just, when you boil it down to the basics, I feel like it's the breath. The breath has a direct correlation to the nervous system. Mm-hmm. So by managing the way that we breathe, we're managing our emotions. Mm-hmm. And that in itself gives us agency to really manage our thoughts and to manage our lives, really. So, it opens up a whole other world. And just the Tristana method, right? When you are so follow it to a T, it's just a whole other world opens up for you, where it's more than just the asanas. But I would say the asana and the physical practice combined with how I was feeling after every class, that's what made me stick to it. And then I was able to just really pay attention to my thoughts, and those thoughts that I mentioned before that were like ruminating before as a teenager. All of that went away when I found yoga. Like, I was able to not identify with them, and I was able to just see things in a more clear way and like take away the veil of illusion. And just see things for what they are and come to a place of more acceptance. But the practice gives you that, maybe has the potential to.
I think you're right. I think tuning into the breath and the way you're breathing, and even integrating the breath with the movement and having the concentration, the drishti, so that you're like focusing inward on maybe the subtle sensations or not so subtle sensations in your body. I think all of that creates kind of, maybe like qigong or tai chi, like a moving meditation, and eventually you memorize the sequence, so you don't have to think about what comes next all the time. So I think it's like an introduction to meditation for regular people.
Definitely. And you get strong and mobile along the way.
And it releases endorphins because it's a type of exercise, so you're also getting some nice juicy brain chemicals to make you feel good, which increases your affect and positivity.
I could use that.
Exactly. And it's the Mysore style, right? So you're doing everything at your own pace and at your own level.
I think that's really powerful too. And I think it's actually really powerful, the Mysore style in particular, because like beginners are with more experienced practitioners. And there's some real science behind that, in that when you see someone else do it, you believe that you can do it too, that it's possible for you. And so it helps you actually learn. So you're doing your thing, but then you're seeing other people do their thing, and it helps your body learn how to do other things. So it's pretty amazing. It's like very intelligent the way when it's taught as it was traditionally passed down through Mysore.
I never thought of it that way. Yes, it's true.
I'm interested in what you're going to do next, and because I wonder, like, what's if you have a kind of fantasy of a plan that, because when I was your age, I was looking at, I had models that I was going to follow, and I thought that I was on like a kind of a 10-year plan to get certified. And then I'd already done a teacher apprenticeship with a guy in New York. And so I kind of could see a path for me to having a studio where I would work and I would get my 50 students and I'd have my certification, and that would be my career. And then of course, you have a family, because that's what we were told, have a family, have babies, and then you're really doing the real practice of the 7th series. Like that was the model that I thought that I was following. And every single piece of that exploded. And for the better.
As it does.
And so I'm wondering if you have a kind of plan or model, like in your heart, what do you think you're doing?
She's in Bali enjoying her life.
And
so I left Canada 15 months ago. So I've just been traveling, and I've been teaching, traveling with a carry-on, just a 10-pound carry-on.
Wow, you're like, and I'm just going, you're like those backpack people that just are living out of a backpack.
This is what I'm doing, but it's an actual suitcase. But yeah, so I'm just going from country to country, and I'm usually in every country just 2 months. So first I left Canada and I went to Peru, and I was teaching 4 teacher trainings in Peru. And then I went to Morocco, teaching there for 2 months, Thailand, more trainings. Then I went to Mysore to study with Sharath. And then I did the Kerala Vipassana meditation retreat when I was there. came to Bali, March, and just for 2 weeks. Then went back to Thailand, taught another training. And then, this is it. I was supposed to come to Bali just for 2 weeks, go back to Thailand, but now I'm here. I'm going to Sri Lanka maybe day after tomorrow, and then I'll go continue teaching there for 2 months. Have you guys been?
Yes, it's not at all dissimilar from exactly where you're sitting. It looks exactly the same, but it's extremely clean. It's a very quiet and Buddhist country, but populated by Indian-looking people, and it is bizarre because you think I'm in India. It's like, oh, this doesn't look anything like it. It looks like Thailand, but everyone is Indian, and yet they behave like they do in Koh Phangan. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. It's an interesting place, super interesting place.
With a very large Vipassana center there.
Yeah. When I went,
really?
it was the year after the tsunami, and everyone was also very sad. And so it was the year after, and no tourists want to go to Sri Lanka because of the tsunami. Of course, tsunamis are like one in a generational event. So you're not going to get another one the next month, but still no one wanted to come. And I just remember being in Sri Lanka for Christmas, and the people working there would say, yes, and that palm tree up there, we found an old fat German man. Yeah, he was dead. It's like, gee, Merry Christmas.
People don't remember that trauma. That was a big trauma.
That was a big trauma. But I think there'll probably be a little bit
capital
T trauma. Yeah. Not just like the baby traumas that we had that led us to be A-type personalities, but like big T traumas. Yeah. So you're going to go there. You're going to have an amazing time there because what you're doing now. But what are you going to do?
She's going to teach a teacher training. But on these teacher trainings, what kind of teacher trainings are these that you're teaching?
But what's her 5-year plan?
You guys are so funny.
He's trying to be like your guidance counselor.
So I'm leading an Ashtanga retreat in Nicaragua in October. So that's happening. And it'll be my first one. And it's at this beautiful center called Amaru, and it's right on the beach. And so I was there last June to check it out. And I said 100% I got to do a retreat here. So that's coming up in October.
It's going to look exactly like where you are, though.
She's just going to the warm places.
And they speak Spanish in Nicaragua, though. So it's a little different, a little bit of a cultural shift. And then maybe after Sri Lanka, maybe Laos. Have you guys been to Laos?
I've never been.
It's going to be exactly like where you are.
Is that a problem, Russ?
I'm concerned about you. If I'm not at all, I'm not at all jealous. I lack motivation to do anything, and I see you living a very beautiful, fantastic life. And I do wonder what's going to happen next for her.
Well, she doesn't know. She's going wherever the wind and the spirit leads her.
That's the problem with these spiritual disciplines, is that you don't have like a firm 4-year accredited university telling you when you're done.
She already has a degree in kinesiology. She's living her life and enjoying it now. She doesn't need to go to college.
She went to college, yes. She went to college, but that's the problem with if you're like a Vipassana practitioner like Ian Grisick. When are you done?
You're never done. When are you done life? When you die.
When's Ian going to be done? That's what I want to know.
We're all going to be done when we die. That's the end of life.
But how do you know when you've learned anything?
So you know what, guys? I think, if I envision, I think it would be really nice to have my own place, but not quite like a yoga studio per se. But maybe more so of like some sort of retreat center or something of this nature. Something with community, like a place for community.
Yeah,
I love this. Well, you're definitely going to be exploring the world, and you're going to find the perfect spot for sure.
I'm a little tired of traveling, guys. It's taking its toll on me.
It's true.
Oh, I
You know
understand
what?
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been drinking, like I don't have all these places I go to except Bali, but I'm staying where I teach. Like I stay
Yeah.
where I teach yoga, or I stay at the
Yeah.
yoga school, or I stay where it is that I'm working.
Yeah.
And then I eat the meals with the students or with the guests wherever I am, and that's kind of what it is. And I don't have my own kitchen, and I've been just drinking instant coffee for 15 months now.
yeah, that's a problem right there. That's the
It's a
problem.
problem.
No, I know what you're saying though. It seems like a dream life when you're just traveling around and you get to go to all these magical places and meet people, and it seems really, really nice. And in one way it is really, really nice, but it does take its toll on your body as well. And
Yeah.
Especially now, it's just been 15 months already. So initially I kind of feel like I did what I wanted to do, and this has always been a dream of mine to do this since I was in my mid-20s, I would say. Like I've wanted to do this, and I did it. And now, but I'm just don't think I'm gonna do it for forever, huh?
yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's
Yeah.
because I'm 50 years old now. And like people, well, when you retire, like you're supposed to like go like explore the world. And I can't imagine anything worse. I don't want to go
Really?
travel when I'm retired. I want to stay home. I'm done traveling. Finished with it.
Yeah. You're tired now.
I'm an old, tired man now. That's right. Yeah, the other question I have for you, and I think this is maybe interesting, is I remember hearing this rock star from like the Go-Go Girls or the Bangles, one of those rock bands from the 80s. And they were talking about like how weird it is to be a traveling rock star as a female. Because all the guys in the band, they know what to do. You go to the next town, you perform, you make eye contact with a couple of girls in the crowd, and then you go and sleep with them. Like that's the job. And then you get paid somewhat, but like that's what you get. That's what you're getting paid with is like girls in the crowd. But for like the rock singer, for Susie, minus the banshees, but for Susie, what is she supposed to do? Does she go down to the bar and pick up men? Because that's just not how it works for women. That's not really what they really want. And so it can be maybe a little isolating being out on the road. And like you wonder, like, where do you get intimacy from when you're constantly traveling and moving? How do you develop that?
Yes. Is this a question now?
Yes.
So I feel like just at the places that I work itself. So like when I'm in the teacher trainings at the schools, the other teachers that I teach with, I mean, the students, to some extent, but I have very clear boundaries with my professional life. And yeah, I would say just in the environments that I'm in, if I'm teaching like a surf camp, just the guests that come in and out all the time. But I'm also very connected with my friends from back home too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
you know
good.
what? I've never felt lonely, guys, all this time.
Yeah.
And I just feel like very good about the fact that I'm just very happy to entertain myself with other things that don't have to necessarily be like seeing people all the time. So yeah.
That's interesting.
When you teach your teacher trainings, is it Ashtanga yoga that you're mostly teaching? Is it a mix of yoga? Is it philosophy, asana? What are they focused on?
Okay, good question. So the teacher trainings that I teach, I mean, I've taught 11 thus far, and they, it's not an Ashtanga, which is good because that is not what Sharath wants.
Correct, madam.
Right. So, I mean, I'm teaching vinyasa or like vinyasa hatha or things of this nature. I don't have a hatha background though. Like this. But I mean, I very much still teach Ashtanga to the students.
Yeah.
Like I get it in there anyways. And then so many of them like they're like, wow, like I love it now, and like because of you, like now I'm practicing Ashtanga, and it's like an intro to them, you know. So
Yeah.
I feel very good about it.
Huh.
I feel very good about it, but
Yeah.
I'm not teaching them the primary sequence or anything of this nature, but I put it in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like mostly asana based, like they're coming to learn how to teach asana classes.
You know what? It's a full-on 200-hour teacher training. So
Okay.
it's asana, it's philosophy, it's teaching methodology. It is everything that a 200-hour. So we give them a certificate and they can go and teach yoga. And I love it, to be honest. Like the asana, teaching a 2-hour asana class is like the least that I enjoy out of the whole training.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like
So
I
you get
love to teach the lectures and the philosophy, and then we teach about yes, we teach so much.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get to go deep with people, not just stay on the surface.
Yeah.
That's right. And then in Thailand, the students also have an opportunity to do an internship there for a month after, and then they teach free classes to the public. And then I sit in their classes and just evaluate them. And that's so nice too, because I've known these students since day one, and now I'm seeing them teach, like actually in action there live to students, you know? And then I just give them feedback. So it's a whole process where like I'm able to see these students like blossom.
No. Is it local students mainly, or is it students coming from all over the world?
It's all over. It's all over.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's
They're not
amazing.
local. Yeah.
No.
So we get
Wonderful.
students from Europe, and from North America. Yeah.
I should really introduce you to some of my friends in Taiwan. Have you ever met any Taiwanese students?
Not recently.
No. I should introduce you because I think your personality and the way that you present, I think you would be really popular in Taiwan. I think they'd really
Why?
like you.
Why?
They're very happy people, very chirpy, very flexible, and easygoing. And I just think that you would really suit them, and they would really take to you as one of their own. Like you really have the qualities that they like, and then you would also be in kind of a tropical climate, which seems to suit you really well. And I don't know, I taught there for 3 years, and I really liked it. And I was remembering just now how one time I started this class and I had to sub a class for a little while. I didn't want to sub the class, but I did, and I didn't know what to do. It was called Hatha Yoga, and I had never studied Hatha Yoga or done Hatha Yoga. I've only ever done Ashtanga Yoga my entire career. I took one Iyengar class in 30 years. And so I go in and I just start like with the students doing the things that I did to warm up in Mysore at 2 a.m. I would do that for like an hour and a half. And do you prep, madam? Maybe you don't prep, but some people like to prep before class. Just like
Do you do warm up postures before?
oh, zip it. Yeah. No, never mind. So I would do
warm up postures.
I would do the secret warm up with all these Taiwanese ladies. And damned if it didn't become the most popular class in Taiwan. And I had to turn people away at the door. It got packed in. And I just went in there. I had a great time, laughed my ass off. We did all kinds of just all these prep poses that I would do. And I'd say, and I would always say to them, like, now go and enjoy your Ashtanga class. Now you're all warmed up. And they would make them laugh. And it was a great time. And it's fun. Like when you really study something, you can just then like start to do jazz improvisation and just have a good time with it.
Yeah, when you know something well, then you can go off a little bit on. Yeah.
Off the range.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I've never thought about Taiwan. But isn't it similar to this Latino culture is just like this, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much so. Very much so. It's very much like because the indigenous Taiwanese are basically Polynesian. And so there's a very
Oh.
Polynesian, Philippine, Hawaii, Guam kind of aspect to the culture that is very island, very relaxed. And there are a lot of like, yeah, there's some high-strung ladies from Shanghai, but they're really like, they really do like dig into like the relaxation. It's so hot, it's so humid that you just can't help but just grab your knees and back bends. Who cares? Because nobody cares. And so like I would say like 30%, 3 out of 10 women grab their knees or higher in back bends because they just don't give a shit.
I think it's in their DNA.
What? I feel that's what I was gonna say. I feel like anatomically wise, like everyone has a different kind of body. And Asian people, it's just they don't have much of like a lordosis, I feel.
Yeah. But it's also
like
very different
the hips. Yeah.
Yeah. But different from Mongolia or Tibet. Like these people are very relaxed, very relaxed. Yeah.
In the South.
In the South, in Taiwan.
But I think that's true of every country and culture, is that when you get
south.
Yeah, the more south you go into the warmth, the more relaxed people are. Yeah. Because when it's cold, like in Canada, you have to be tense. Like your body just is tense. There's nothing you can do about it.
This is true.
What she said at the beginning of the conversation when I said we're like we're surviving barely on the edge of the earth. Yeah. What did she say? You're winning.
You're winning. Yeah.
You're winning, guys.
You're winning. So are you, Arbs. Yeah. You're winning.
Well, if someone wants to come find you, how can they follow your travels and find you online and come say, hi, Arbs, we heard you on the podcast. We want to practice yoga with you?
On Insta at Arbs.
Insta Arbs. Yoga with Arbs.
There's also my website, and that's for my retreats.
Okay.
Happening in Nicaragua in October.
Beautiful.
It was the Nagano Olympics, by the way, for those people who were left hanging.
Nagano Olympics.
1998. 1998. So let's just see here.
98.
Let's try and find Arbs. I'm going to ask Meta to find Arbs.
And so people can still sign up for your Nicaragua retreat.
Arbely Rubalcava. Okay. I'm already following you. Look at that. Oh, Jiminy Crickets. That's nice. Is that you? Oh my goodness.
You look very tall in this one photo.
Well, she's long.
I'm only 5'3".
No, she's tiny.
5'3".
She's the same as me.
I'm only 5'3".
5'3".
That's what people say that to me though too. Someone wrote once on an Instagram post, "Oh, you have long limbs like me," and I was like, "What?" No,
you are quite short-limbed, madam. Yeah, look at you doing handstands, and then you're doing a handstand with the lotus. I always love doing a lotus in the handstand.
But it's true. Instagram makes your limbs look long.
Yeah, look at this. Look at that.
I think I have long limbs though. But you can be short and have long limbs.
That is very hard to do when you do a handstand, go into lotus and bring it down into your armpits. That's very difficult. People should know about that.
You're just having a ball looking.
It's nice to see. You're working hard.
Thank you so much for coming on our podcast today and saying hi to everyone and introducing yourself. It's been so nice.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Hey, it's summertime and we have a fun summer challenge, a little game to play with you this summer. We want to get to know you. We want to stay connected and we want to see where you are listening to this episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. So wherever you are on your summer vacation, at the beach, at the cabin, or even a staycation at home, relaxing in the sun, maybe on your patio or by a fire pit, snap a photo, tag us at Finding Harmony Podcast on Instagram, and we cannot wait to see where you're listening to the Finding Harmony podcast and reach out and connect with you and say hi. So come on over, take a photo, post it to your social media, your stories, or a post, tag at Finding Harmony podcast and let us know what you loved about the episode you're listening to, what episode you're listening to, what you loved about the episode you're listening to. I can't wait to see you and connect with you online soon. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.